The title of the message is Called to Evangelism, because the fact of the matter is we're all called to evangelism, as Bradley and Jackie and others have said. We are all called to evangelism. You know, the church uses some very weird words. The church uses words that makes the world kind of furrow its eyebrows and wonder, what's the church talking about? Because we use words that are foreign to the world and foreign to our communities. And in fact, the word evangelism is not a word that's on the lips of every person on the Shankill Road and the Falls Road every day of the week. They're not walking about thinking and talking about evangelism. People who were out on the 11th of July, the 12th of July, they were not walking up and down the road talking about evangelism. And if anybody was to stop them and talk to them about evangelism, then they probably wonder what you're talking about. To talk to them about Jesus, maybe a lot more people would understand that, but the word evangelism is foreign to a lot of people. Let me tell you, explain that the word evangelism comes from a Greek word. The Greek word is euangelion, and from the word euangelion we have the word evangelism, and we have translated that into the English language to gospel. And the word evangel, the word gospel, literally means good news. So evangelism is the method of presenting the gospel, of presenting good news. In a nutshell, the gospel is this. The gospel is that we've all sinned, but that forgiveness is made available to us because of what Jesus Christ has done. The Bible makes it clear there is no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. And so we're the ones, as Bradley rightly says, we're the ones that have the message. We're the ones that have the answer to the problems and the issues that people are facing in our communities, in our city, in our nation, and in our world. The devil tries to pretend through different religions that there are other answers, but the only solution and the only answer is Jesus Christ himself. He makes it clear that that's the situation. The early church made it clear that Jesus is the answer. And even Peter made that declaration, there is no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. And that's evangelism. Evangelism says to people and says to the world, you have sinned, but God loves you. And Jesus died for you. And because God loves you and Jesus died for you, there is forgiveness. Evangelism is not about winning an argument. Do you know you could win an argument and lose a soul? We even heard from James how that psalmist steps up to challenge two people. And it's an immediate challenge. It's not just a challenge, it's an attack upon the person and upon their lifestyle. But evangelism is not about winning an argument. Evangelism is about winning a soul. Evangelism is not about condemning the world for its sin. Evangelism is about loving the world in spite of its sin. Now, just in case some people might think Jack's going soft in sin, we know there's coming a day when God will judge the world through Jesus Christ, his Son. We know that there's a great white judgment throne before which the world will stand. And before that, there will be the mercy seat of God before which every believer will stand and will kneel. We forget about that one. But judgment is sure and judgment is coming. But evangelism is not about us reaching out to condemn a world that Jesus does not condemn. Not yet. But reaching out to a world knowing that even though it has sinned, yet we still love the world in spite of its sin. You know, Jesus himself said, the Son of Man, he, the Son of Man, did not come into the world to condemn the world. So if Jesus was standing outside some nightclub, he would not be condemning the people going in and coming out. He did not come to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. If we represent Jesus in evangelism, then we should not be doing what Jesus Christ would not do. We should not be condemning the world because Jesus Christ did not come to do so. We leave that to him. Evangelism is not about putting people down, but it's about lifting people up. And how many people need lifting up in our communities? I don't know about you, but normally we're away over the 12th and 13th of July and so on. Last year we were here for the first in a number of years. We went up the Lisburn Road. We watched the parades. We weren't even going to go, but we thought, we're sitting here bored, so let's just get in the car. Go up the Lisburn Road. We'll get into Eddie Rockets. A lot of rockets about the place. But went into Eddie Rockets, and we'll get ourselves something to eat, and then we'll sit about. We'll bring our little chairs, and we'll, like pensioners do, we'll bring our little chairs, and we'll sit in the Lisburn Road, and we'll watch the bands coming by. And so we did that, but I can tell you, this is one of the worst 4th of Julys I've ever seen. I don't know what it is. The 11th of July night, all the stuff that was going on. Yeah, we know that's been going on for years. We understand that. But there's so much, and the stuff that grieved my spirit on the 12th of July, when I saw men, older men, married men, gawking at young women. And I mean, it's like, what are you staring at? And you felt like walking up and, it's like, you felt like stepping out of Israel for 5 minutes and getting into Egypt and seeing if you sort out the issues of the world. And how sad when you witness a lot of stuff that went on over the 11th and the 12th of July. But thank God for those who run the streets to lift people not to condemn them, but to lift people up. And James, I want to commend you for your vision about the Woodville Park and for the team. And everybody knows my attitude about stuff goes on in our communities, and everybody knows those attitudes. And I will not promote anything that I know that behind it there are sinister elements. I will not do that. But to stand alongside James and the team and support on what they were doing, we have no issue with that. And they were there to reach out and to support people who needed help. And I want to thank Aaron McCrory, thank you for what you did. Thank you. And a lot of people don't know what Aaron did. And we go out to reach out, and my wife doesn't know, so I'm not going to give any details. But some of you do know what happened on the 11th of, or not, a couple of nights before the 11th of July. And yet, our team was there to reach out and to give support and to step up and to step into a situation. So thank you for that, and thank you, Aaron McCrory. So we're not there to put people down. We're there to lift people up. Evangelism is not about taking delight that someone's going to hell, but it's about showing people the way to heaven. I can't understand how the Christians can talk about hell with a smile on their face. I can't understand how that we can talk about individuals, no matter how much we dislike that person, as if we're saying, you're good for them, they're going to hell. That's not evangelism. Evangelism is not about delighting the people who are going to hell, but it's showing people the way to heaven. It's about bringing the greatest message of all time to a world that is lost, and it's called the gospel. It's called the evangel. It's called good news. It's good news. That's why the prophet Isaiah, we've already heard from Jackie, quoting from Isaiah 6 and verse 8, where he said, "Here am I, sent me." But on Isaiah 52 and verse 7, he said, "How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news." How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news. Let me tell you, friends, when the prophet spoke of the feet of those who bring good news as being beautiful, he was not talking about 2 feet and 5 toes or 10 toes. Yeah, there's 10 toes and 2 feet. He was not talking about 2 feet and 10 toes. He was talking about the carrier, the person who carries the good news. You see, friends, this is about you. It's not about your feet. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, of those who bring good news. It's about those, it's about the person, it's about the people who carry the good news. And why do I stress that? Because I want to say, friends, it's not only how you carry the message that counts, it's how you carry yourself that counts also. You've all heard the phrase, "Don't shoot the messenger." Sometimes the messenger deserves to be shot. And sometimes people will shoot the messenger, not because they're bringing bad news, but because they brought the bad news badly. And sometimes even Christians bring the good news badly. We need to watch how we carry ourselves in life. Not just the moment they're out to evangelize, not just the moment they're on here on the stage and the platform singing and playing. We need to watch how we carry ourselves in life. Because if people lose respect for the messenger, they'll lose respect for the message. I don't care what title you have, what ministry you have within the church, but the moment that people lose respect for you, they will lose respect for what you do. They'll lose respect for the ministry. They will lose respect for the message. How beautiful in the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news. Not just about how you carry the message, it's about how you carry yourself. Be careful how you carry yourself. Be careful how you carry yourself in public, in work, school, wherever you are, at home. Be careful how you carry yourself as a servant of Christ, and within this context as an evangelist. And when you do carry the gospel to someone, be careful how you carry that message to them. See, this is good news. We're not going out with bad news to the world. We're going out with good news. We're taking good news. And we need to be careful how we're carrying that. We need to let the world know that we're bringing good news to them. And friends, it's not good news that people are going to hell. But it is good news that people can avoid going to hell and can go to heaven. That's the good news. You know, there are people, and we could all think of individuals and think, you know what, if I was God, that person wouldn't stand a chance. But because God is God and not us, then that person does stand a chance. And that's the good news that we can bring to people. It's not good news that God is angry with people because of sin. And if the world sees us being angry with the world, then they're going to see God as an angry God. And that's not good news that God is angry with the world. Sometimes He is, of course He is. But it's good news that even though the world has sinned, and even though the world deserves the anger of God, that God still loves the world. John 3:16 hasn't changed. John 3:16 hasn't changed. God still so loves the world that He gave His only Son, that whosoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. He still loves the world, and John 3:16 still applies today. And it's good news that those who are lost can be found and found by Jesus Christ, because He's in search of those that are lost. Thank God that in order to do so, and I love that song that we sing, in order to get to where the lost are, there's no shadow He won't light up. There's no mountain He won't climb up. There's no wall He won't kick down. No lie He won't tear down in order to get to where they are. That's the good news. Jesus goes in pursuit of those who are lost in order to find them. And if He didn't do that, I wonder how many empty chairs there'll be in this place here this morning from those that are sitting here right now. The good news is that those who have sinned can be forgiven. The good news is that for those who have no hope, there is hope. The good news is that for those who are trapped by addictions and by life-controlling issues and by sicknesses, that there is freedom in Jesus' name. That's the message of the gospel. It doesn't just stop with, well, get on your knees before the cross and get forgiveness. Yes, that is a major, major part of it. But by His stripes we are healed. By His blood we are set free. And we thank God that the cross of Jesus Christ is an answer to so much within the lives of individuals within our communities and even here in the church. The good news is that this message is not just for one community or for one people group. This message is for everyone. This is why Paul said in Romans 1:14 that he had an obligation. I mean, imagine if we could say that. Bradley's asking the question. Jackie asked the question. When was the last time? Do you know why we don't evangelize? Do you know why we don't tell people about Jesus? Because we don't feel obligated to. We don't think there's an obligation upon us as Christians. And you need to thank God for those who are living out their lives because they have an obligation. They feel they have an obligation to people. Thank God for people like Paul, who felt he had an obligation Thank God for Peter and for many others who back in the day when people were literally being crucified for following Jesus Christ, that they did so because they had an obligation. Thank God for those today who stand up at street corners, who stand on platforms, who lead worship, who preach the gospel because they have an obligation. Paul says, I have an obligation both to the Greeks and the non-Greeks, to the wise and to the foolish. And friends, I want to tell you, in our context, in terms of where God has placed us in the church, look where God has placed us. Look what the Lord has done. Amen. This is what God has done. This is not Jack McKee wheeling and dealing. This is what God has done. And God has placed us, and God, in placing us here, has given us an obligation to preach the gospel. An obligation to preach the good news, but not to preach this good news to one section of the community. God has placed us between these gates and given us an obligation to preach to people on both sides of the divide. Paul says to the Greeks and to the non-Greeks, in our context, God has given us an obligation to preach to the Protestants and the Catholics, to preach to the Muslims and the Jews. No matter who the people are, no matter where they are, we do it because we have an obligation to bring the gospel to where the people are. Jesus made it clear that the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. He didn't come to set up camp and then for the lost to come to where he was. Andrew Willis put an incredible post on months ago, and I'm trying to use it without even making reference to him because I want to claim credit for it. But Andrew Willis put an incredible post on a few months ago, and it was this. He says that the good shepherd leaves the 99 and goes after the one that is lost. You know what happens within church? People drift away from church and then they expect the pastor to go and chase after them. And they're thinking, well, I'm not the 99 anymore. And Andrew Willis made the point that the good shepherd goes after the one that's lost. Now, what about the prodigal son? Do you know that the father never went after the prodigal son? Never. Never. Show me in the Bible. The father never went after, running after the prodigal son. Why? Because the prodigal son was living in disobedience. And so the father waited in the house, but he looked out and he kept longing for his son to come home. And if you're in disobedience, then don't expect the pastor to run after you, because it's not going to happen. I've learned lessons over the past 40 years, doing things today that I wouldn't have been doing. And it gets tiring and so on. People still talk about, she looked at me the wrong way. She looked at me, literally. I mean, even this past couple of days, and I don't even know if the person's here in church, and I don't want to put the person off, but it's like the person was looking at me wrong. And I'm thinking, I'm dealing with suicides. We're dealing with people who are losing loved ones. We're dealing with marriage breakdowns. We're dealing with major issues, and someone's not looking at you right. Get a life. Sylvia, give her that microphone. So Jesus came to seek and save the lost. He came to seek and save the lost. And where are the lost? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Every time Robert and others pick up people in their taxis, they're picking up people that are lost. Thank God. Sometimes they're picking up those that are Christians, and that's amazing. But all too often it's people who are lost. When you get into work in someone's home, it's someone who's lost. When you're connecting with people in the community, it's people who are lost. Everywhere. Tens of thousands of people marching our streets, carrying the Bibles, promoting battle, not the bottle, and yet they're people that are lost. He came to seek and save the lost, and they are everywhere in every community, and we have an obligation to reach out to the lost. And so Jesus told us to go into the highways, to go into the byways, as Bradley reminded us today, to go into all the world and preach the gospel. And that does not mean go to Africa and India and China. Thank God for those who do go to those places. But it's about going into every strata of society. Get into your local community, get into your workplace, get into the school place, and letting Jesus Christ live out in your life. And letting evangelism become a lifestyle and however he gives you an opportunity to share, then to do that. And so he told us to go. I've said this before, I repeat this over and over again. But it's true, so I keep saying it. That nowhere in the Bible is the world commanded to come to church. Nowhere. But the church is commanded to go into the world and to preach the gospel. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again this morning, that we as a church have not been found wanting in terms of going. And thank God for those who catch the vision, who get up and who go and who do something that's outside of the box. And who begin to reach out to a community, even if it's just through acts of love and compassion, because it's what Jesus did. I believe the reason that happens is because of how this church was established on those two pillars of evangelism and worship. Do you know that every church is built upon pillars? And there are two different types of pillars in church. They're the pillars the church is built on, and they're the caterpillars that just kind of crawl in and out every now and again. I want to be one of those pillars the church is built on. I want to be one of those people, man, woman, young person, who's standing together with others, and the church has been held up because we're standing shoulder to shoulder with each other, and also working in partnership with Jesus Christ, because he's the master builder, and we work alongside Jesus. This church was established because someone went, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but I'm blowing my own trumpet. I could have stayed in Ballysill and Elam, where I'd been for 10 years as the pastor there. Man, we had knocked down walls. We were bringing in extra seats. We were seeing the church grow and develop. We had some incredible times, and it's not been repeated since Jack left, and I'm not saying that in any facetious way. I'm not, believe me. But it's not. And we pray for that whole situation in Ballysill and Elam. But I could have stayed there in a church that was growing. I could have held on to the security of the position and the security of a salary. Could have held on to that. But it was never about money then. Let me tell you, friends, it's not about money now. Never was, not is, never will be. Friends, I chose to step out back then. 26, 27 years ago, chose to step out from that place of security in order to take the message to people who weren't coming to church. Because that was the challenge the Holy Spirit brought to me. Nowhere in my word is the world commanded to come to church. But the church commanded to go into the world. And I knew that I needed to do something different, and that's how Stadium was bought and all that was birthed, and a new life was birthed out of that. I wanted to take that word beyond the church building. Take it to people whose lives were messed up and damaged by the devil and by his little minions, some of whom are called community workers. But I made the choice. I made the choice to go, as Jesus said. You know, we can preach it, we can sing it, but not do it. We all know that's what Jesus said to do. We all know he told us to go and to preach, proclaim the gospel, share the gospel. We know that he told us to do that. But he doesn't just want us to preach about it and sing about it. He wants us to actually do it, as Bradley said. And so I'm not preaching a sermon telling you to go. I've gone and I'm still going. Why? Because Jesus told us to go. He said, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. Let me finish off in a few moments by asking a question. Who should go? Come you up here and preach this message, Sylvia. You would save me a week of studying. We're all called to go, every single one of us. So don't leave it to Bradley and the evangelism team. We're all called to go. Now, does that mean we all go out on a Saturday morning, a Sunday afternoon? Not necessarily so. I mean, there may well be times when the whole church gets up and we all move forward and we all do something together. But, hey, we're all called to worship, but we're not all on the platform. We're all called to proclaim, as Bradley says, to share, but we're not on the platform. We're all called to evangelize, but that doesn't mean to say that we're all on the evangelism team that organizes the evangelism events. But we're all called to evangelize, every single one of us, so we all therefore should go at some level. Go. Jesus told us, even way back then, told the disciples, lift up your eyes and look to the fields, he said. He said the fields are already white on the harvest. They're ready for harvest. They're ripe. You just need to go and start to bring in the harvest. I believe that God has made incredible preparation across our communities. I know some of you feel this deeply in your own spirits, that something incredible is going to happen within our community. People are asking questions now. I even got a message from someone, not say who it was, embarrass the person, not a Christian, but asked me to pray for them. He said, Jack, you know I'm not a great believer, but he said, I want you to pray for me. And that's what people are reaching out, because they know there's something different. And it's like God has sent to the church, the world and your community, which is our world, it's ready for harvest. We need harvesters. We need people who are prepared, not just to jump on the evangelism team. You see, Bradley, if you want to know more about that. But people who are just willing to say, you know what, I'm going to through those doors, I'm going to live out my life for Jesus. My family's going to know that I'm a Christian. My workmates are going to know that I'm a Christian. And it's not going to be for 40 weeks in the year or even 50 weeks in the year, but give me a break for the next 2 weeks. How sad is that? How sad is that? Hey, I've given God 50 weeks of my life. Give me a break for the next 2 weeks. How sad is that? Jesus Christ is looking followers. Jesus Christ is looking those who, if we follow him, will be prepared to learn from him and become fishers of men, women, and young people, as he was and still is. Jesus Christ is looking for those who are prepared to look out to the harvest field and say, I want to be part of this end-time harvest. I want to start to bring the people in. Do you know that if everyone, one person, if you as that one person from January this year to December this year, if you could reach one person for Jesus Christ, one person, then we would double the numbers of Christians here in 1 year. Just by reaching one person. And yet some of us could be saved 3, 4, 5, 10. I'm not saying this to make you feel bad, but if it makes you feel bad, then good. Well, we can be saved 10 years and never even having reached one person. And maybe one of the reasons why is because we think too deeply as to how we do that. We think we've got to go up and start to say, hey, can I tell you about Jesus? No. Some of you need to just start where you're at and begin to make a few changes in terms of how you connect with other people and let them see Jesus in your life. So when you do begin to speak, they'll also see your words connecting with your actions. But Jesus says, follow me. And I'm urging you this morning, dear friends, to recognize the fact that we're all called to evangelism. The summer has only started this summer. And for Northern Ireland, it lasts for 1 or 2 days. But the summer has started. And someone at one time who said that summer has ended, and he talks about us not being saved. I want to see people saved over this summer. I want to see people on the Shankill Road, the Falls Road, coming to faith in Jesus Christ over this summer. And you give a part of the harvest and reaching out to those that are lost. Begin where you are and reach out even to those in your home and in your little sphere of influence.